And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gents. This is podcast Noel from Orlando, Florida, on this awesome and international podcast, Good Wine and Great Laughs, the podcast for wine lovers, ladies and gents, summer movie reviews, and hot topic discussion. Today, I'm your boy Casanova. If you're new to my YouTube channel, every Saturday morning I have the wine of the day, ladies and gents, followed by the topic of the day. Topic of the day is always a topic that can affect our lives directly or indirectly. And during the summer movies of June and July, I take a break of doing hot topics and I do summer movie reviews. Any movies that come to the movie theaters, Netflix, Amazon Prime, Apple TV, all these other platforms that come out during those months, I do a movie review. So if you like movies, if you like wine, like movies reviews, summer movies reviews, and hot topic discussion, this YouTube channel is for you. If you like the work that I do, ladies and gents, I just ask you 3 things about you, about this channel. If you like what I do, please subscribe, click on the like button of any video that you watch, and share the link of this video or any other videos that I watch with at least 5 people you know. These are only the 3 things I'm asking you to do. Appreciate with all my heart, ladies and gents. So I just want to apologize to all my subscribers because last Saturday I was in no condition whatsoever to record anything related to podcast because, as you can see, I'm wearing now my soccer team jersey in Brazil and other part of the world. You call football. The real football is what my team play. Here in America, you guys call soccer. And we have a very, very important tournament of the South American tournament, the whole continent. And my mind, my body, the level of anxiety was up here. So I was in no condition whatsoever. I barely could sleep the night before until the game was over and we won the title. And then on this past Wednesday, you played the national tournament and you won. So you won the 2 titles in 5 days. Now the team today is on the way to Qatar to participate in the Intercontinental Tournament. So very, very happy. Apologize for you guys for not having the podcast last Saturday because once again, Flamengo was calling. All right, ladies and today is Saturday, December the 6th, 2025, and the weather here in Orlando is going to be with a chance of afternoon showers, highs of 81 degrees, ladies and lows of 63. So before I talk about the topic of the day, let's talk about the wine of the day. Ladies and gents, I got another wine from Argentina. It's called DULCE NOUVEAU. It's from Argentina, ladies and gents, and the whole label information that's not in the back. So they make one big label right here in the front, and it says Dulce Nouveau. It's from Argentina. It says right here is a sweet white wine. So here. At an altitude of 700 meters, you found the route, a dreamlike landscape between poplars and willows that lead you to a century-old winery. True to the orange of its Italian founders and the path laid out by generations, its wine reflects philosophy, work, passion, and commitment, connecting each of the production links. Alcohol percent of this wine is 12%, ladies and gents. Once again, it's a product of Argentina. And the picture of the wine of the day is going to be available on all my social medias. here. First time having this one right here. Like the nose of the wine. Ladies and gents, it is a very good white wine. It says sweet, but it's a level of sweetness that I like. It's not too sweet at all. So to me, this wine is perfect. Really, really like it. Nice hint of sweetness at the back of the palate. Less little level of citrus. No, it's a very good wine. Let's say I really, really like. Really, really like. Definitely recommend it. Definitely give a 10 for this wine right here. Very, very good wine for Argentina. So, ladies and gents, let's jump on to the top of the day. Ladies and the top of the day for season 11, episode 18 is Trump's war crimes are coming out. Oh, shit's about to hit the fan. Credits to MS Now. I'm going to play 2 videos from them and also Democracy Now. And after, like I always do, after watching these videos, ladies and gents, I give you my 2 cents about what I think about the topic of the day. So, enough talking. It is showtime.
First, they lie.
Like always.
That's what has happened in the American military after every war crime committed by the American military. First, they lie. Somewhere in the chain of command, they lie. That is what Donald Trump's incompetent Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth, did when first confronted with the Washington Post breaking news report of a second missile strike on a small boat that had already been destroyed and burst into flames after the first missile strike. The Washington Post reported that the second missile strike killed 2 people clinging to the wreckage, which would be a war crime in a war and is murder outside of war. There is no war in the Caribbean. There is no fog of war there. So Pete Hegseth lied and said that everything in the Washington Post article was, quote, the fake news delivering more fabricated, inflammatory, and derogatory reporting. That was Pete Hegseth's first lie about this story as soon as it came out. Pete Hegseth himself has already turned himself in for lying about that, for telling that lie, since he has changed his story multiple times since he told that lie on Sunday. In Vietnam, the worst American military war crime of the 20th century was called a resounding success. Those are the words, resounding success, in the first after-action report of what came to be known as the My Lai Massacre, in which American soldiers commanded by Lieutenant William Calley summarily executed 347 people.
Damn.
And first, they lied. But 18 months later, Lieutenant Calley was finally charged with personally murdering 109 civilians.
Insane.
Babies, grandmothers, brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers. When one of the soldiers, Lieutenant Calley, ordered to murder people, refused to do it, Lieutenant Calley took that soldier's rifle and shot them himself. But first they lied. The American military never wanted us to know that story. And when the suspicions built about a possible war crime, the lying didn't stop immediately. The lying does not stop immediately in these cases. But based on the American military's history of lying about war crimes, the American military has earned exactly zero credibility to any defense or offered about a possible war crime if that defense does not include evidence. And that's for war crimes. What about crimes committed outside of war? Brian Goodman is now a professor of law at NYU who served as a legal counsel in the Pentagon in 2015 and 2016. He told the New York Times today, focusing on the shipwrecked is a distraction insofar as it suggests everything else preceding and after that strike was all legitimate. Even under a law of armed conflict, they were all civilians, and we are not actually in armed conflict either way. It was all murder.
Agree.
All murder. That is the considered opinion of a legal expert on this matter. Today, the admiral in command of the mission met privately with the Republican and Democratic leaders of the House and Senate committees with some jurisdiction over this matter. House and Senate Armed Services Committee, the House and Senate Intelligence Committee, the House and Senate Appropriations Committee, including the Appropriations Subcommittees on Defense. Of the 6 Republicans who were offered that briefing today, only one of them stepped up to a microphone afterwards to offer what he saw in the video of the second strike that targeted for murder 2 people clinging to the wreckage of what used to be a small boat and was just debris at that point. Republican Senator Tom Cotton, the chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, believes that the 2 people clinging to the wreckage, in his view, needed to be killed.
I saw 2 survivors trying to flip a boat loaded with drugs down for the United States, back over, so they could stay in the fight. And potentially, given all the context we heard, of other narco-terrorist boats in the area coming to their aid to recover their cargo and recover those narco-terrorists. And just like you would blow up a boat off of the Somali coast or the Yemeni coast, and you'd come back and strike it again if it still had terrorists and it still had explosives or missiles, Admiral Bradley and Secretary Hegseth did exactly what we would expect them to do.
No terrorists were killed in that attack. No other Republican who was briefed today offered a specific defense of what they saw when they were shown the video of the second attack killing those 2 people clinging to the wreckage. Every Democrat who saw that video of the second missile attack today said they found it deeply disturbing. Tonight, Adam Smith, the top Democrat on the House Armed Services Committee, made it very clear that Pete Hegseth was lying when he claimed that the second strike occurred during what Hegseth called the fog of war. It turns out there was no war and there was no fog.
First of all, we need to be clear. There was no fog of war. They had a clear vision of these 2 people on top of what was left of their capsized boat for quite a while. I think it was somewhere between 45 minutes and an hour after the initial strike. So they could see clearly what was going on. First. Second, I saw Senator Cotton say that the 2 gentlemen were trying to turn their boat back up, I guess. That is patently ridiculous. That boat wasn't going anywhere. And by the way, that's not the justification that Admiral Bradley even offered. So it's 2 people sitting on a tiny little portion of a boat sticking out of the water that's capsized.
In the first report of this incident by the Washington Post, Admiral Bradley was as fully implicated in the order to kill those 2 people as Pete Hegseth was. The Washington Post reported the commander overseeing the operation from Fort Bragg in North Carolina, Admiral Frank M. Mitch Bradley, told people on the secure conference call that the survivors were still legitimate targets because they could theoretically call other traffickers to retrieve them and their cargo, according to 2 people. He ordered the second strike to fulfill Hegseth's directive that everyone must be killed. If Admiral Bradley told the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth today in his discussions with congressional leaders, which was not under oath. He will be the first military commander suspected of involvement in illegal killing who immediately told the full truth in his very first secret discussions about the incident. The only video we can show you of Admiral Bradley speaking to Congress is from his Senate confirmation hearing.
I pledge, and I believe that throughout time we have always worked as an integrated interagency to be able to bring the multiple levers of influence and power that the U.S. needs to achieve its policy objectives. And if confirmed, I would pledge to continue that.
If the Republican-controlled committees in the House and Senate conduct real investigations of this incident, Admiral Bradley will face more difficult questions next time he testifies to Congress under oath on television. No matter what evidence comes out in this case, there will be defenders of every missile Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth and Admiral Bradley have fired at every person they have killed on every one of those very small boats. When Seymour Hersh began his investigative reporting on the My Lai massacre in 1969, he found defenders of Lieutenant Calley everywhere. One officer told Seymour Hersh, "He's a good soldier. He followed orders." There was no amount of evidence that could change the minds of Lieutenant Calley's defenders in the American military and outside of the American military. And that's what will happen this time. No matter what we see on that video, there will be people like Tom Cotton telling us that they saw something else.
Right.
The criminal charge against Lieutenant Calley was that he committed premeditated murder of 109, quote, Oriental human beings whose names and sex are unknown by shooting them with a rifle. Like the people the United States of America has been killing on those small boats far from the United States. Pete Hegseth doesn't know their names. Pete Hegseth doesn't know their sexes. Pete Hegseth doesn't know how old they are. He doesn't know if there was a 12-year-old boy or other children on any of those boats. Pete Hegseth doesn't know if there were women on those boats. And so now Donald Trump is facing a demand to release other information that he apparently wants to hide, and that includes the now secret video that was shown today only to congressional leaders and to no one else. And as an added insult to the American public, Donald Trump released another video tonight of another missile killing everyone on another boat somewhere in the Pacific Ocean, this time thousands of miles from the United States of America. A small boat that can't carry enough fuel to reach the United States. If these small boats are carrying as much cargo as Pete Hegseth says they are, they cannot possibly carry enough fuel to make it farther than the next island. They just couldn't possibly carry enough fuel for that if they're also carrying all that cargo. These are not ocean-going vessels. These are very, very, very small boats. Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth want you to enjoy watching videos of them killing people in those boats. That's why they release those videos. They want you to be like them. They want you to love watching those people get killed. But for some reason, there's two people they don't want you to see get killed. For some reason, they don't want you to see the video of them killing two people clinging to the wreckage in what law professor Ryan Goodman, an expert on military law and civil law, says is just murder.
How do I, as a member of the public, anybody else, understand, again, these wildly divergent statements that are falling on partisan lines about something that is so gravely serious?
Well, as a former Secretary of Defense, I'm very concerned that that the Republicans and the Democrats in the Congress are not coming together to look at this situation and determine what happened. This this is serious. We've deployed almost 15,000 of our young men and women into harm's way. They're putting their lives on the line right now. And we don't know at this point just exactly what the objective is, whether or not we are really abiding by the law. What is the strategy? I think it's really important for Republicans and Democrats on Capitol Hill to come together on behalf of the American people to properly define just exactly what the hell is going on.
What would stop them from releasing this video? We've seen the other strikes. We'll play you video of the strikes right now. We've seen a number of the 22 different strikes on drug boats, including this one. This is the first strike on September 2nd. The Pentagon has been quick to release all this video. Why would they not release the second strike?
Well, there is no justification for withholding the video on this strike. I think Senator Rand Paul is exactly right, that it ought to be released. And then the American people can make a judgment as to whether or not this was a war crime or something different.
What does it say about trust right now in our lawmakers? How does the American public look to the government and say to either party, I can trust you, when they can't form an agreement based on what they've seen with their own eyes?
You know, I tell the students at the Panetta Institute that in our democracy, we govern either by leadership or by crisis. If leadership is there and willing to make tough decisions and to govern our country, then we can avoid crisis. But otherwise, we'll be governing by crisis. And I'm afraid right now there is a serious absence of leadership that should be stepping up in both parties, stepping up and saying, we have a responsibility here to our men and women in uniform to make sure that this country is clear about what is the objective, what are we doing, what's the strategy, what is the law, are we abiding by the law? Because you don't put our men and women in harm's way and then not be clear about what the objective is.
Secretary Panetta, let me play Mark Warner, the ranking member of Senate Intel, on what he saw and the disagreement with Senator Cotton.
I have a very different judgment than Senator Cotton, but I am not going to reach, a full conclusion until I get all the facts. I think Americans, it will be a chilling and extraordinarily disturbing video. And, this was a classified briefing, so the details, but I don't think there was, I don't think I'm going beyond any barrier to say there was no doubt about their gender. There was no doubt about the fact that I believe they were incapacitated.
There's also this secretary from the New York Times just came out a moment ago. According to folks who saw the video, some of the people viewing the video thought the waving by the survivors could have been an attempt to surrender. Others who viewed the video said the most logical explanation was that the two survivors had seen the American aircraft above them and started signaling for a rescue. So what this Times article says is that the two survivors were waving, and apparently it appears potentially waving at the aircraft above them for help. Is there, even in the fog of war, I'm trying to understand if there's any defense here, if there's any explanation for striking two survivors who are waving. It appears some of the Republicans are saying that they might have been signaling to another boat to come get them. You'd understand that if you were stuck in the water, I guess. Or maybe that they were trying to overturn the boat to get drugs back on, according to other Republicans. From that description, as somebody who's been at the head of this department, who's made complicated decisions under a lot of pressure, help me understand what could have been going through that admiral's head.
Well, first of all, let me say this. Secretary of Defense is involved in planning this military strike. And as Secretary of Defense, when we planned a military strike, I was present for the entire mission to be able to determine whether or not the mission is being properly accomplished. I'm not sure I understand why the Secretary of Defense witnessed the first strike, but then left the room and was not there for the second strike. And let me also say that whether he was there or not, it's the Secretary of Defense that should take responsibility for what happened here.
That part.
Because that was an important call as to what should happen. And somehow the decision was made to kill the two survivors. And the reality is that after that, there were strikes that were made in which survivors were not killed, but were actually captured and returned back to their country. So something happened here in terms of the directions that were given to the military involved in these strikes. And I think it's important for the country to find out why those changes were made.
You know, Secretary, I've had you on a lot. I think this is correct me if I'm wrong, this is the angriest I've heard you. Why does this, am I hearing anger correctly? And if so, why? Why does this make you angry?
I'm sorry, say that again.
So it sounds like, and we've had you on so many times, this sounds to me the angriest that I have heard you in an interview, honestly. And I wonder, am I correct to state that you're angry, number one? And number two, if so, why would you be so angry?
I'm angry because this involves the lives of our men and women in uniform. Look, we have the strongest military on the face of the earth, and we have very brave men and women who have stepped up to be able to defend this country. And we've now deployed them to an area where we're not sure what exactly the mission is going to be. What's the objective? What's going to take place? And at the same time, we're striking these boats. And it's also not clear what is the intelligence, what is the planning that goes into it, what is the information involved. You know, we're playing with people's lives here. And very frankly, one of the strengths of our military is that we do respect life. We do respect that there are those, even in the heat of battle, who have to be protected because they're living human beings. So this is an issue that involves our fundamental values. This is an issue that involves how we are treating our men and women in uniform and whether we're giving them clear direction. And it involves, very frankly, whether or not the United States represents the kind of country that says we need to respect individuals, we need to respect the law, and we need to do what's right. That's what the United States of America is all about. So it's because those things are not being attended to that I'm concerned, because I think America is better than that.
One of the other aspects of this that I'm trying to understand, and I'm wondering if you have a better explanation for me, is after this second September strike, September 2nd strike, where the two survivors were killed, the protocol for what to do with survivors changed from the Pentagon, and there have been two others that we know of, and those two, instead of being brought to the U.S. for trial for drug trafficking, which is what the Pentagon alleges they've been doing, they were repatriated. Would there be a reason for repatriation instead of extradition to the U.S. For trial if they were drug traffickers?
I'm not sure what the rationale was there, because if they are drug traffickers, they're breaking the law. They should have been arrested. They should have been brought to justice and tried. And somehow the decision was made to simply repatriate them back to their country. I think there's been a lot of confusion that has come up between the difference between enforcing the law and conducting a military war. And the reality is that we have always treated drug trafficking as a crime and have used our law enforcement and the Coast Guard to be able to go after these ships and find out what's on board, arrest them, and try them for any crimes that they've committed. Somehow, that standard of how we approach these issues has changed. And I'm not sure where it's taking us. If we're going to treat drug traffickers as enemy combatants, and that's the rationale that is being used now, then you have to ask the question, is the United States going to start bombing people in Colombia, in Honduras, in Mexico, because they're drug traffickers? Are they now enemy combatants who are going to get killed by the United States? That's a question we've all got to ask ourselves.
Over its targeting of boats in the Caribbean and Eastern Pacific that it says are carrying drugs, though have not presented a shred of evidence. The Washington Post recently reported Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth ordered the killing of 2 people who survived an initial strike on a suspected drug boat off the coast of Trinidad on September 2nd. According to the Post, Hegseth gave a verbal order to, quote, kill everybody, unquote. Many legal experts and lawmakers said such an order would be a war crime. This is independent Maine Senator Angus King on CNN Monday morning.
The law is clear. If the facts are as have been alleged, that there was a second strike specifically to kill the survivors in the water, that's a stone cold war crime. It's also murder.
On Monday afternoon, the White House confirmed the second strike on the boat did occur, but claimed the order came not from Hegseth, but from Admiral Frank Mitch Bradley, who at the time was the head of JSOC, that's the Joint Special Operations Command. White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt was questioned about the strikes.
To be clear, does the administration deny that that second strike happened, or did it happen and the administration denies that Secretary Hegseth gave the order?
The latter is true, Abe, and I have a statement to read for you here. President Trump and Secretary Hegseth have made it clear that presidentially designated narco-terrorist groups are subject to lethal targeting in accordance with the laws of war. With respect to the strikes in question on September 2nd, Secretary Hegseth authorized Admiral Bradley to conduct these kinetic strikes. Admiral Bradley worked well within his authority and the law, directing the engagement to ensure the boat was destroyed and the threat to the United States of America was eliminated.
On Monday night, Secretary Hegseth wrote online, "Let's make one thing crystal clear. Admiral Mitch Bradley is an American hero, a true professional, and has my 100% support. I stand by him and the combat decisions he has made on the September 2nd mission and all others since," unquote. While he was showing his 100% support, many took his statement to make a distinction between him, Hegseth, and Bradley himself as to who gave the order. This all comes as Hegseth is threatening to court-martial Democratic Senator Mark Kelly, who's a former naval officer. Kelly and 5 other Democrats, all military or intelligence veterans, recently appeared in a video urging soldiers to disobey illegal orders.
I'm Senator Alyssa Slotkin.
Senator Mark Kelly.
Representative Chris DeLuzio.
Congresswoman Maggie Goodlander.
Representative Chrissy Houlihan.
Congressman Jason Crow.
I was a captain in the United States Navy.
Former CIA officer.
Former Navy.
Former paratrooper and Army Ranger.
Former intelligence officer.
Former Air Force.
We want to speak directly to members of the military
and the intelligence community
who take risks each day
to keep Americans safe.
We know you are under enormous stress and pressure right now.
Americans trust their military.
But that trust is at risk.
This administration is pitting our uniformed military
and intelligence community professionals
against American citizens.
Like us. You all swore an oath
to protect and defend this Constitution.
Right now, the threats to our Constitution aren't just coming from abroad,
but from right here at home.
Our laws are clear. You can refuse illegal orders.
You can refuse illegal orders.
You must refuse illegal orders.
No one has to carry out orders that violate the law or our Constitution.
President Trump accused the Democrats of appearing in that video, of engaging in, quote, seditious behavior punishable by death. On Monday, Senator Mark Kelly revealed he and his wife, Gabby Giffords, have received death threats following President Trump's threats. Yes, that family knows violence well. Gabby Giffords is the former Arizona Congressmember who was shot in the head in a mass shooting in a Tucson shopping mall when she was meeting with constituents years ago. We're joined now by David Cole, professor at the Georgetown University Law Center, former national legal director of the ACLU. His recent piece for the New York Times is headlined, "Mark Kelly is being investigated for telling the truth." We last spoke to you in October after your widely read piece in the New York Review of Books headlined, "Getting Away with Murder," about the boat strikes. So these two issues, to say the least, are coming together very strongly this week. One, you have the revelations in the Washington Post of the second boat strike, killing the shipwreck, the two men who were hanging on for dear life to this boat when they hit it again. And you have the attacks on Mark Kelly to court-martial him after he and others talked about soldiers not obeying illegal orders. Talk about the merging of these two issues and specifically what's happening to Kelly right now.
So, this entire operation from the outset is illegal. It is not legal to engage in premeditated targeting of people because you believe they're engaged in criminal activity. We have a system in this country for trying people, convicting them, sentencing them, even if you are found to have been guilty of smuggling massive amounts of drugs. You cannot be executed. The death penalty is limited for people who have actually committed a homicide. The president says this is a war, but he's mixing metaphor with reality. The war on drugs is a metaphor, like the war on cancer. It doesn't allow us to kill people who are carrying drugs, just as the war on crime doesn't allow us to kill people who are criminals. What we've now learned is that not only is the entire operation illegal from the outset, but they're now actually targeting survivors of these strikes. People who pose no threat whatsoever to the United States are seeking to hang on for dear life, and the military is targeting them and killing them in cold blood. It is getting closer and closer to My Lai. And yet, when members of Congress say to members of the military, you have an obligation not to follow illegal orders, what does the president do? Not say, hey, that's right. These orders are problematic. We should rethink them. We should pay attention to all the lawyers who told us they were illegal before we push them off the table. Instead, he goes after Mark Kelly, a senator, a combat veteran, for merely telling the truth, and a former astronaut for merely telling the truth. It is a true statement that following orders is no defense to a war crime, and killing civilians who are not engaged in armed conflict against us is a war crime. This is criminal activity from the get-go, doubly criminal when you start targeting survivors. They have to rethink this policy, not claim that their critics are engaged in sedition.
But David, I'm wondering, all of these boat attacks are actually creating a climate where basically the United States, the people of the United States get used to the fact that the United States is going to war, in essence is going to militarily attack Venezuela. And for instance, The Guardian just reported recently that Trinidad and Tobago, which is right next door to Venezuela, has 100 Marines that have installed radar. And there was a quote from a political leader in Trinidad and Tobago, David Abdullah of the Movement for Social Justice, that accuses their government of being complicit in these extrajudicial killings in the Caribbean. I'm wondering, under what pretext do you think the United States will use to actually militarily attack Venezuela?
Well, this entire operation is a pretext. There is no war going on. We are not under attack. No one has been drafted to fight the enemy. President Trump has taken a crime problem and has said, I'm going to use the military to solve the crime problem. How? By killing people in cold blood. And Pete Hegseth translates that to say to his folks, kill everybody. And so then Admiral Bradley responds to that by ordering the killing even of survivors who are merely holding on for dear life. This is crimes that the government is trying to justify as acts of war. If they go to war with Venezuela, that too will be a war crime. It will be an act of aggression against a country which has not attacked us. The fact that people are probably are smuggling drugs into this country from Venezuela doesn't distinguish that country from Mexico, from Canada, from many other countries into which drugs are smuggled. It doesn't give us the authority to kill Canadians. It doesn't give us the authority to kill Mexicans. It doesn't give us the authority to kill Venezuelans, and it certainly doesn't give us the authority to go to war with a country.
I'm wondering also about another major legal battle of the Trump administration, the admission of the Justice Department that it was Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem who made the decision to deport a group of Venezuelan men to the notorious mega prison complex in El Salvador, ignoring a judge's order to keep them in custody. What do you make of this?
Outrageous. Outrageous. We are a country of law. That means that government officials, just like you and I, have to follow court orders. In this case, the Trump administration, again using this pretext of a war, said we're going to deport more than 100 Venezuelans on the assertion that they are part of Tren de Aragua, a Venezuelan drug gang, which Trump says is engaged in armed conflict against us, notwithstanding the fact that no one ever heard of this group before Trump made this ridiculous assertion. The ACLU went to court to challenge that on an emergency basis. The judge held a hearing. He told them on no uncertain terms, do not remove these people. And if the planes have taken off, turn the planes around. And if they land in El Salvador, do not let the people off, bring them back. And instead, Kristi Noem, the head of the Department of Homeland Security, tells her people to defy that order and to continue the plane flights to El Salvador and to turn these men over to the El Salvadoran authorities, where they were put in essentially a torture prison. That is not how the rule of law is supposed to operate. I think it's going to lead to contempt charges against Kristi Noem and the others who engaged in that blatantly illegal disregard of the judge's order.
I wanted to continue on that line of the deporting of people. You have Kilmar Abrego Garcia, right, who A brave Justice Department lawyer said in court, because he had to tell the truth, that it was not clear why he was even sent to Sekot. Now he's being faced with being sent to one African country after another, a continent that he is not from. They are not backing down on deporting him. I wanted to ask about that. And also on this issue, we just had a headline yesterday on this young woman, a Babson College student, deported to Honduras this weekend while she was trying to fly from Boston to Texas to surprise her family for Thanksgiving. 19-year-old Annie Lucia Lopez Beloza was told there was an issue with her boarding pass at the gate before she was detained by immigration officials. The day after she was arrested, a federal judge issued an emergency order prohibiting the government from removing her from the United States for 72 hours. But instead, she was deported and is now in Honduras, where she hasn't been in many years. She did not grow up there.
So I think we have to ask President Trump, have you no sense of decency? No. Have you no shame? The kinds of cruelty that he is imparting on people who have lived here their entire lives, on Mr. Abrego Garcia, who was admittedly a mistaken deportation. And instead of admitting their mistake and saying sorry, they're now seeking to send him to a third country, to Africa, a place that he does not know, has never lived. This is just beyond the pale. It is absolutely beyond the pale. And I think the American people recognize that what the administration is doing in the name of immigration enforcement is far too harsh, far too cruel. It is not singling out criminals. It is not singling out people at the border. It is taking college kids. It is taking people turning up to their interviews and to their court appearances and spiriting them off to countries they never came from.
David Cole, we have this breaking news. The former Honduran president, Juan Orlando Hernandez, was just released from prison in the United States, where he was serving a 45-year prison sentence for drug trafficking and firearms charges. His brother, Tony Hernandez, also serving a life sentence here in the United States. He was convicted, the former president, of sending in tons of cocaine into the United States. Put this against what the U.S. is doing in the Caribbean, bombing so-called drug boats to prevent drugs from coming into the United States.
Again, have you no shame? Here's somebody who was essentially a drug kingpin, someone who used the authority of his office to ensure that drugs in massive quantities were brought into the United States. He is prosecuted, he is convicted, and he is sentenced. And what does President Trump do? He lets him out of jail. Meanwhile, fishermen on boats in the Caribbean, who we have never been tried or charged with anything, are shot and killed from the air. And when people are holding on for their lives, they follow through and shoot and kill those people. This is not about fighting to stop drugs from coming into this country, because then you would not see the pardon of somebody who was convicted for that offense. This is pure politics, and it is playing with people's lives, ending people's lives for partisan political advantage.
And David Cole, I'm wondering, Trump's use of the pardon. Most presidents wait till their final year in office, and around Christmas time they do a bunch of pardons. But Trump has been on a rampage with these pardons. Could you talk about what the message that this sends about presidential power?
Well, the pardon power is one power in the Constitution that was given to the president without check. We've generally relied on, the principles of presidents to use it in wise ways, use it to dole out mercy in appropriate cases, not to award donors, not to award the kids of donors, not to award those who have violated laws in the same way Trump violated laws. Trump is abusing the pardon power as no president before ever has, and I hope no president afterward ever will again. But it really raises questions about giving the president absolute power. Absolute power corrupts, and President Trump has proved that with his use of the pardon power. He's pardoning people who do good to his business interests. He is essentially using it to line his pockets and to let people off who he identifies with, not to engage in any kind of principled grants of mercy.
David Cohen, we just have 30 seconds. The judges finding the U.S. attorneys that President Trump appointed, his personal attorneys, Alina Habba in New Jersey, Lindsay Halligan, finding that they are illegally serving, the significance of this.
Well, this is what happens when the president insists on hiring loyalists who can't get Senate confirmation, even from a Senate that the Republicans control. He instead tries to use these tricks, calling them interim, calling them acting, etc. And now 2 courts have held that kind of back-to-back appointment to avoid Senate confirmation is unconstitutional.
David Cole, I want to thank you for being with us, professor at the Georgetown University of Law Center, now a visiting professor at Columbia Law School, former ACLU National Legal Director. We'll link to your piece. Mark Kelly is being investigated for telling the truth. Thanks for watching Democracy Now! On YouTube. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to make sure you never miss a video.
And ladies and gents, as you're watching with me, these 3 videos, just like it's insane, you know. I make a 2 notes right here. That first of all, the former Secretary of Defense Leon Panetta was talking about that the Democrats, the leader of the Democrats and the Republicans need to get together. First of all, ladies and gents, the Republicans do not, just like you heard Senator Cotton right there, still try to defend what is undefensible. Give excuses for, what his administration is doing. And second of all, Trump administration does not give a damn about the law. This man is a corrupt human being. He's a disgraceful human being. He doesn't give a shit about nothing but himself. Like I said, people that try to defend the boat because they're bringing drugs to America, blow them up. But okay, so you're willing, just like the last gentleman on the Democracy Now! Video say, so you focus on this little dude that because that has not been proven, the drug was being brought, it was in the butt. That was assumption. They're not saying that realistic proof that those boats were bringing drugs. It's a suspicion of maybe could be happening. But he pardoned this Honduran president that was in charge and make all the deals to bring tons and tons of drugs to America. He was being charged, he's being convicted, was in jail. Which sense does that make? None, ladies and gents. 0. None. Doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So this man's corrupt to the core. And for all this Christian now, okay, where are the Christians now? Where are the white Christians defending this piece of crap? That's no justification for what he's doing, ladies and gentlemen. Another thing too, like all military has a set of rules and regulations. That's a core. For instance, the Army is the Army values. So probably the Air Force has its own name. The all branch of military that stand integrity, ladies and gents, is the one that's important. It's part of Army value, integrity and commitment. So I don't know what kind of, for this Navy Admiral, he's held in a high standards because if he broke up and did some illegal and followed illegal orders, you know what I'm saying? His hands should be served on the plate too. That's all I'm saying. And for all the senators, people in the Congress now that not senators, the Congress people that stood in and was on that video, and I agree 100% with what they say. The foreign military, people in the CIA say do not follow now illegal orders. What the President Trump should do is say, you know, I agree with these videos, and that's right. If you follow illegal orders, you should not be followed. That's how he's supposed to come after. Now speaking after that video, but now he tried to say that those Congress people are seditious and they need to be killed. You know what I'm saying? It's insane, ladies and gentlemen. It's insane. The only hope that I have for this country right now is because this last election in November, you could see that a lot of people are voting for the blue side, the Democrats, because it's going to be a clean out on aisle 5. It's going to be a whole lot of messages that need to be clean. Now, there's a special election that happened in Tennessee, that the Democrat, the female lady, now that female candidate lost it, but she got it very, very close. And I still don't understand. You see what's going on in the country. You see when you want to believe me, you can do your own search with your phone and see the conditions of all states that Republicans are in charge of. Education, crime, health, employment. You look at it and you see everything is in the gutter. It's shitty. Florida, cost of living here is crazy. Insurance, home insurance is crazy. Car insurance is crazy. You know what I'm saying? It's ridiculous. It is very expensive to live in Florida. When I moved here 10 years ago. Because who's in charge and what's continuing to be this? Fucking DeSantis and this goddamn Republicans. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So my hope for the future is I hope for the next midterm elections that people finally now wake up and keep all these Republicans out of office. To have a better state, to have a better country for everybody. Not just for the wealthy, not just for the white people, but for everybody, for every citizen that live here, and for the law to be followed. Because Trump can run his mouth about the law and order, but he doesn't give a shit about it. You know, but he's going to break all the laws because he's going to do what he wants to do to move on his agenda. But he really, really doesn't care about any law. All right, ladies and gents. So this is my 2 cents about this video. If you like this video, ladies and please do me a favor. Click on the like button. Subscribe to this YouTube channel if you're not a subscriber yet. And share this video or any other video with at least 5 people you know. All right. So please be safe, be kind, and be blessed. And be the best. Do the best. What you can do is what you got. Salute. And I see you next Saturday. Just because I'm behind the schedule, I may, according to what's going on in my agenda this week, I may come another episode on Wednesday, Thursday, and then on Saturday it's going to be episode 20. That's going to be the closing of season 11, ladies and gents. So I see you then. Holla! Vamos, Flamengo! Chama o Mengão!